come up with a philosophy. It's called the three-person philosophy. And it's because I believe that in each of us, there's three versions of ourselves. Each person has three different versions of themselves into the same person. Now, what are those versions? Everybody has a past version of themselves, everybody has a present version of themselves, and everybody has a future version of themselves. What is the past version of yourself? The past version of yourself is anything that you did or you in the past. So 5 seconds ago was technically the past version of myself. 10 years ago was technically the past version of myself. What is the present version of yourself? The present version is you in the moment. When you're in the moment, the things that you're doing in the moment, saying in the moment, feeling in the moment, that's the present version of yourself. And then everybody has the future version of themselves. And the future version of yourself is the best version, because the future version of yourself is determined by the present version of yourself. The future version of yourself the future version of yourself is constantly changing depending on the actions that you take. And this philosophy, when I truly created it and understood it, it gave me the blueprint for how to be successful in life. So I'm going to share it with you. So how can you use a three-person philosophy to be successful in life? Well, it goes back to what I was just talking about. The future version of you is whoever you want it to be, but it's based on the actions that your present version takes. So let's give a small example. Let's say I'm a fat person and I eat, junk food every day, soda, all the BS. Because of those actions, as of this moment, the future version of me is a fat person. The future version of me is the same, if not worse, than the present version of me, because of the actions that I'm taking in my present version. So let's say I decide, I want to be fit. In the future, I want to be fit. My goal is to be fit, in shape, muscular, skinny. That's what I see for myself in my future version. So how would I accomplish that? I would have to change the actions that my present version is doing. See, most people in life, we live in an economy, we live in a world where you're constantly told or you're constantly influenced to serve the present version of you. And serving the present version of you is okay, but serving the present version of you when you're not at the version that you want to be is detrimental. Because a lot of people in life, they say, I want to be rich. I want to be this, that, and the third. But your present version actions are not going to lead you to a future version of yourself where you're all those things. If your present version is constantly, vaping, smoking, drinking, going out, doing all types of things that are hurting you, in the future version of yourself, you're going to be sick, you're going to be out of shape, you're not going to be a happy person, you're not going to be the best version that you could have been. Why? Because you were serving your present version before you got to your future version. See, the blueprint to really winning in life is to serve your future version until your future version is your present version. And then you can start serving your present version. Like I said earlier about the gym example. Let's say I'm fat, I want to get it.
This is Ola from a week in the future. I started recording that video last week, but I didn't feel like I was ready to record the rest of it until today for a reason that I might explain in another video. So what was I saying? Let's say, like I said in the previous example, you're a fat person and your ideal future self is an in-shape person. Right now in this moment, you're currently serving your present self, which is why you're fat. So to get to that future self, where you are that in shape person, what do you have to do? You have to serve your future self. So what does that mean? What does that look like? It means that you have to do the actions that future self would be doing to be at that weight, or that future self had to do to get to that weight. What does that mean? It means exercising daily. It means cutting out junk food. cutting out soda and other processed drinks, cutting out the fast food, being disciplined with your eating, not overeating, eating the right things, being consistent for probably months, maybe years, depending on how big you are. That's what it looks like to serve my future self. And once I keep serving that future self, I will eventually become that future self. And then that future self is now my present self. So now my present self is a in shape person. So now if I want to indulge in a little junk food here and there, I could serve my present self now. Now that doesn't mean to overserve your present self. That doesn't mean to go back to where you were, your past self. But now that I am the future self in the present, now I can serve my present self a little bit. Why? Because I've earned that by serving my future self till I became that future self. Now, there's one self that we haven't talked about yet, which is the past self. Now, the past self is the most dangerous one of the three selves. Why? Because the past self can haunt you, and the past self is the only version of yourself that you can never change. Once you've taken an action in this world, 9 times out of 10, you cannot undo it. So the past self is constantly in your head. The past self is when you think about, oh man, I wish I said this instead of that. Or, oh man, I wish I didn't go to that place. Or, oh man, I wish I didn't take that decision. Or, oh man, if only. That self is very, very dangerous because the past self can creep up on you and stop you from serving your future self. Example, let's say, in the past, you tried and tried to get this job, this certain type of job, this certain field, and you failed. And you failed multiple times to try and get the job. Now in your present self, your future self wants that job. Your future self wants to work in that industry. But now you're trying to feed your future self again, and here comes your past self. Oh, you're not good enough. Oh, you failed like 4 times. What are you doing? Oh, don't you remember when they said no? That's your past self coming in. Your past self coming in, and it can stop you from serving your future self, which will keep you in that present self that you do not want to be in because you want that job. And another thing that the past self could do is remind you of all the good things that you've done. A lot of people love their past self because a lot of people love thinking about, oh man, in high school I was this, man, or in college I was this, man, or I did this much, or I made this much money back then. But back then doesn't matter. We're all living in the present. And your past self can creep up on you and get you in a false sense of comfortability or make you dwell in things that happened in the past. Or you got those people that's still in high school, 25 years old, still talking about what they did in high school. That's the power of your past self. And you know what happened? You know why that past self comes out and does things like this? That happens when you're not properly taking care of your present self. And you're not progressing to your future self. If you are progressing on the right path steadily to that future version of yourself, you're feeding your future self, you're not going to be thinking about the past. But it's only when you are not on anything. It's only when you are not serving your future self. You're serving your present self all the time. You're not accomplishing anything. Is when you think back to, remember what I did back then? A lot of athletes do this, man. I could have went D1, man. Or you didn't. It's over now. Or, man, I remember I was getting on. It's over now. That's the danger of the past self. So, long story short, what should you take away from this video? There's 3 versions of each person. The past, present, and future. One of them can hurt you. One of them you have no control over. But the other 2 you have complete control over. So which self are you gonna serve?